we're not competing with like the best ad to be creative. I'm kind of competing with the Dream Team Cups. The memory that we all had from our childhood of the Dream Team Cups, Bad Bunny at the halftime show is like, I'm bringing my voice to this stage as authentically as possible, and it ends up being like the #1 streamed and watched Super Bowl halftime show of all time. It's a big thing that I think everybody young should know. It doesn't exist without your voice. So like, bring your weird to it. You know what I mean? Don't be afraid of your weird. Let's add it to the party. Being able to pull something off like that in 7 days from an idea that's in a deck to something that's airing the end of the Super Bowl and available the next day in stores is incredible.
Marques Gartrell grew up in Philly, drawing Sonic the Hedgehog, while every other kid at the #1 ranked public school in the city was being engineered into a lawyer. He went to Hampton for graphic design, and a guy named Alan Shute told him his concepts were shit. He took the note. 20 years later, he's co-chief creative officer at Wieden+Kennedy New York.
Hey guys, I'm a terrible person. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Daylight savings, you get a pass for that.
You're off today, no?
We are closed today, yes.
Wow, what holiday is that?
In 2021, we realized no one was taking vacation, so they did a thing where they made 4th of July week off, and then they put a vacation day every month to force people to take time off. And
vacation in a day. Sounds like a campaign.
So March was March was COVID day.
Okay.
Because it started like March 13th was the day we shut down, and then I think after 4 years we were like, let's stop reminding people about COVID and let's keep the day. So we made it. We realized today is Employee Appreciation Day on the calendar, so we were like, let's just make it that instead.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love to start just by asking how you got into this business.
I'm from Philly originally, so go Birds.
Nice. Chill sports fans.
Very relaxed people, very calm, very kind.
And when they win, especially chill, right? That's when things get really violent.
I can't tell what you want to happen more, us to lose or us to win, because it's just going to be bad either way.
I think it's the same. You're at least consistent throughout,
Thank you.
Always a through line of, it's a through line of hatred for your opponents.
I'll take this. That's the thing about us. You know what you're going to get. There's no real surprises.
It's always a traffic light. Someone's always climbing a traffic light.
It's traffic light. I mean? There's like horse cops get involved sometimes.
Yeah. The horse cops.
No pole is safe. I grew up in Philly. I went to this school, Julia R. Masterman, which is like constantly ranked the #1 public school in Philly. All these smart kids going to be doctors and lawyers and like policy makers and engineers and
real jobs.
And I was more excited about like visual storytelling than like being a sort of actual lawyer or a real paying job. I ended up going to Hampton University for graphic design, but I found an internship at this like super tiny design shop there, and the guy there, Alan Shute, who like changed my trajectory. He saw my book and he was like, "Do you want the good review or do you want the real review?" And I was like, "I'd just be real." And he was like, "If you walked into a New York agency right now, they tell you like your design's okay, but your concepts are shit and all these things." Like, "Oh, thank you." But he essentially, it was like, "This is great." As a Philadelphian, I like a little hard
That's
love.
such an old guy thing to say though. Like my uncle used to say to us when playing cards, he's like, if you do that, they'll shoot you in Texas. It's like, will they, dude? Really?
Yeah, seriously.
He was like, oh, in New York, if you went to New York agency.
Just any agency.
Tear this up.
Pick one agency, walk in, they're going to tell you how shitty you are. And I'm like, that sounds like a lovely city. But no, he told me about like creative circus. Went from circus to Fallon and like just sort of bounced around. But circus was great. It was like my crash course in creativity and, marker comps. Those don't exist really anymore, but just, drawing out some print ads with a Sharpie and a piece of paper.
Nice. And you've worked at some of the most influential agencies in the world. I mean, it's sort of like a who's who of agencies on your resume. Yeah. Do you recall like learning specific things from each of those shops?
Yeah, I think like each agency was like, you're right. In looking back on it, there were so many like iconic shops. Like my first shop was Fallon in Minneapolis, which I'd never lived in the Midwest, but
They're back too.
They're
Back on the A-list.
Yeah, they are, which is great. I mean, like I have love for that place for forever, and it was crazy. I moved out there with no partner. They just hired me straight up from ad school, and I was kind of so blown away by not knowing, but having met all these guys and like that were there in the 90s that did all the great BMW films and like all the beautiful Travelers insurance spots. And they all really learned like how important storytelling was to advertising. Like you just had creatives that had no desire to be creative directors because they just really, really loved the craft, and watching them read a script was essentially like watching a movie. You know, these guys were incredible at it. And like at that point I really picked up on storytelling, but it was interesting because I don't think I realized it at the time, but I also was a part of an agency that had such like a sense of the impact that advertising could have on culture. My second year I went to this CD Mike Gibbs to his house for Thanksgiving, and I learned two things. I learned that like people in Minneapolis have like green bean casserole for Thanksgiving, which was not something I knew was a thing.
Green beans with like cheese or something?
Yeah, it's like a dish with green beans and cheese and garlic and all this shit. And I was like, this is weird, but you know, to each their own.
Overcooked green beans.
Yeah, it didn't necessarily, that didn't stick with me. I didn't take that away from Minneapolis when I left. But it was crazy.
It's still in your arteries though.
Yeah,
don't worry, it'll always be with you.
We're still digesting that. But Mike, I realized, had actually, he wrote the Holiday Inn Express tagline that like, you know, are you a doctor? No, I stayed at Holiday Inn Express last night. And I realized I'm sitting at the table of a guy who like made this sort of sticky cultural piece of like ephemera, you know, which was incredible. And that was like a huge thing I started to chase when I came to New York and went to work at Saatchi with Jerry. Like, you know, Jerry Graff being an arbiter of all that Skittles and Starburst work, you know, was something that like culturally defined, you know, an era. I also met one of my CDs there was Dan Kelleher, who was at BBDO, who worked on like all the FedEx work that like was just iconic out of BBDO for forever, and later got to work at BBDO too. So these guys that were just like creating these pieces of cultural, like, you know, memories for everybody were huge lessons that I picked up everywhere. And like landing at Wieden now is like all of that on steroids. You know what I mean? It's like this is the place that's been shaping culture forever, like creating it, you know, making real meaningful difference in culture and like for actual businesses. You know, the fact that like now CMOs and CFOs get to talk about the power of creativity is incredible, because it really is something that's not just like entertaining on TV. It's something that actually, you know, makes companies move. And like that idea of us being able to impact the things that like companies can make, whether that's a product, you know, whether that's things that are like in the seat backs of a Delta flight, is massive. And it really does, it helps impact like what the company and the employees that work there actually believe and what they do, and like makes things that people that are in society kind of debate and love and hate. Like there's just so much shit from the Portland work for Nike, you know, like Winning Isn't for Everyone, just that sort of work. People hated on it so much in society. You go, oh, that's great. It made you feel something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's been a massive part of my learning.
And do you think that creatives are swimming more upstream? I think that's always the dream, right? It's like you're not just told to like make whatever's in the media plan. You're like helping to solve business problems.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're getting more and more opportunities to do that at Wieden?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of our key things is like, it's incredible to affect the marketing department, but like the power of the marketing department in the agency or in the industry and in the companies is what's really powerful. Like when we have...
Isn't that so annoying though, as a client of the agency comes in and goes, yeah, but should we change your packaging? And you're like, dude, that takes 3 years.
Oh, exactly. That's the beauty of it. The beauty of it is like, we're always this like ignorant outsider, you know? And that's what that's the role we constantly play, is like
beauty for you.
Yeah. We don't know. And like, you know, in year one, we'll ask you if we could do this thing and you'll laugh at us. But by like year 2 or 3 or 4, if we start to get some success with the creativity from like just, you know, what was in the brief, we're always going to bring you the extra stuff that's outside of it. And, you know, for McDonald's specifically, it went from us, to your point, it's like, we should make this product. And they're like, that'll take us 16 months to make that. And we're like, okay, like we can get on board with that process. But you go from meeting marketing to meeting the menu team to meeting like the packaging people to meeting the people.
Teams.
Yeah. And it's cool because every one of them, you're just like, we always say we think there's creativity in every surface down to the whole music. So the more you give us like sort of palettes to play on, the more fun we get to have. And I think that's the thing that continues to evolve in creativity. Is like, it's nice to make a 30-second spot or a 60-second spot, but people aren't always paying attention to that. So if you could write the copy, which, Weiden's done, the copy on vitamin water, when you can make packaging for McDonald's that you see somebody walking down the street with, when you make the in-flight video for Delta and it's like more entertaining, like,
and then you have to watch it like 80,000 times.
80 million times.
But you enjoy it. Maybe you enjoy it.
Yeah, we always say it's interesting when you're like walking down the street and you see a McDonald's bag that you designed in the trash can. It's like the biggest confrontation ever, because you've made millions of bags, and then inherently the creativity the creativity you have will become like a piece that just is everywhere around you, and that's so cool.
Yeah. I find it funny because like I remember working on big campaigns, and it was like by the time you got it done, you were so fucking over it. You're just like, get this away. I never want to see this thing again.
Yeah.
You get to that point where like you've seen it so many times, you lose the ability to review it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because like you're so familiar with the details, you're like, ugh, how do I take a clean pair of eyes onto this thing?
I think about every time I hear a song in like a pharma ad, because I'm like, man, you were in the edit. You heard this song a bajillion times, and now it's going to run.
They did that on
like
the Super Bowl too.
Yeah.
They literally just let the second 30 just hang with the terms and conditions.
It's good.
And they even got the like superstar talent to like do the weird like B-roll stuff where they're just like looking at the car.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed that.
I've never worked on pharma, but my partner Brandon did, and he told me that like the key when you're reading the terms and conditions is that you can't show anything too exciting, which seems like an incredibly hard challenge to write 30 seconds, because it's a 30 seconds of something that's not that entertaining. But like,
they're always taking some away from us, aren't they?
Yeah.
I feel like every brief, it's like the end tag's 8 seconds, guys. So you got 7. It's like, we had 15s, dude. You're giving me 7 here?
Yeah.
Give me 6 to work with to tell a story.
You could do it in a vine. You're great. Tell me a whole story in the length of a vine, and then you're set.
That's what you mentioned, Jerry, but that's something he said. He's like, if you can tell a joke in 6 seconds, you know what I mean?
That's great.
About the product. I'm curious about the different shops you're at. I only really trained once at DDB, and that was like real training. I had like 6-week immersion into like Burnback and his philosophies and the process, and it was really rigorous. I'm wondering if you felt that at all the different shops you went to, or if some were more mature in the way that they trained and followed like a process.
Yeah, I mean, I think they all had different belief systems, and I think the belief systems led to different work. And I do think a lot of it does come down to the eras. Like, I do feel like when I was at Fallon, there still was
a Taylor Swift reference.
100%. My favorite artist.
Yep.
Never.
Perfect.
It's on somebody I don't think I could name 4 Taylor Swift songs. If you just asked me to name titles, I'd be so close.
You just named the album, or the. It's even the.
That's the tour
concept, really. Yeah, the tour. Yeah.
Oh, is that the concept of all the albums? Is there? Okay.
I'm not that good on this.
I've learned something new on this podcast. It's incredible.
There you go. Swifties are going to come after us. It'd be great for the show. It'll blow us up.
Yeah. No, I think each one was very different. Like, when I was at Fallon, it was very much at that time, much more the old school storytelling that was like long form, beautiful scripts. And it was
always a 60.
Yeah.
Did you always start with a 60?
We started with 30s, 60s, and we started with like really sharp headlines and print ads. And like, that was the thing. It was so much more simple. And it did start to evolve when I was there into being more like socially involved. It was the era of like the interactive creative director. So it was like, let's all get on Foursquare.
Make a microsite.
Yeah, make a microsite, take them there. At Saatchi, it was it was big, but it was a mix of Jerry's like taking creativity, not to your point, not shying away from the product and like making the product be, the hero. Like I was on Keystone Light under Dan and Alex Lee, and the character was Keith Stone. Like we named the spokesperson pretty much after the beer, so there was no shying away from the product, and you got to like make the product be up front, make the jokes about the product, which was massive. And Shy, it was similar that it was,
How would you do that, by the way? Would you just like go and drink at a bar or something? Or was that mainly strategy's job to figure that out? Like
it was
consumption, customer, those types of things.
It was strategy giving us insights into like the consumer, and then we just had to make our jokes fit around that consumer. I enjoyed it because, my partner at the time, Kim Nguyen, was a Vietnamese woman and just a black guy and Vietnamese woman writing jokes for like rednecks that drink Keystone Light. And I was like, you guys have no idea that we're making this for you, it's
amazing,
which was great. But being able to see their world and write jokes that would make them laugh was incredible.
I didn't think I've ever drunk a Keystone Light.
Well, that means
it was always natty light.
Yeah. So that was
different.
They are different.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the same demographic. I worked on Natty too.
Yeah.
Like they're both, classic American people in their like early 20s, college, so they were
cheap beer. Love it.
Yeah. The value thing is great because there's a lot more freedom in those ones. Like you're just, and
you never landed on hydration.
No,
there's a lot of water in that beer. So Wieden+Kennedy, they have like 40 plus years of mythology. I mean, it's probably the greatest agency of all time, you'd have to argue. Does that feel like fuel or pressure to you?
I wouldn't call it pressure. I would say that really like Wieden+Kennedy, it feels like it's like a massive honor to be a part of it. To your point, like it's existed for 43 years and has been iconic in so many different eras. But I think that like the honor of it all is that it's really always been a place that's been built by the people that are in it. So like even the early days when Dan and David found this place, like a lot of the voices that created it were like Susans and Riswalds and Janet Champs and Hal Curtis, and like their voices are what kind of define the place. So each era really does get redefined by the people that exist within it. So like there's so many different versions of what Wieden's become. So the honor in that is being able to like add your voice to that history. I remember we went to Dan and Dave's memorial a couple of years ago, and it was beautiful. You have like all these people that have worked at Wieden in all these offices over the years. Everybody got a wristband for each office they worked in. So I had my one, but some people had like 5 wristbands. They've been in Tokyo and Portland, and you have people that like have spun off to.
I thought you were going to say for the drinks, and I was like, that's a bit weird.
That'd be a lot of wristbands. But you have people that started their own agencies that spun off from Wieden, and like its mentality and its ethos started to like inspire all these new places. And I think the thing that was really incredible on that day was, when they played the reel of like the agency's 40-year history and all the work that was in it, like we had some pieces of work that were in it. And I was just like blown away to think that stuff that we were doing now could exist next to the things that like these titans of advertising had done. But it was so cool because it was the same thing where it wasn't necessarily their voice. It was like our voices being added to it. Like we often talk about, our goal isn't to make our ancestors proud, it's to make our kids proud. And like that idea that you're making something that's going to inspire the next generation of creatives to make something is like incredible, like to think that I could time travel to like 1982 and try to explain to these guys like, Willem Dafoe playing pickleball or, Cactus Plant Flea Market or Minecraft or a bunch of kids being on TikTok, like faking their deaths with a purple milkshake. They'd have no idea what I'm talking about, but that becomes like a piece of creativity that we're putting out now that starts to add to the legacy of the place. And I think that's like the coolest opportunity that exists at Wieden, really.
Since you came on, like I feel like Wieden, New York for the first time ever is like the epicenter of the Wieden universe. Like, do you feel that, or is that just sort of an outsider perception?
It's kind of a key to just always adding more things to the repertoire of Wyden. Like I think, to your point, it was always Portland, but there were always like interesting things coming out of each office. Like, we always say that each one of our offices has a different sort of skill set and like just our Swiss Army knives of creativity. London can design like nowhere in the world. Like their craft is beautiful. Even the absolute work they just released, we see that and we go, God, I don't know if we would have ever made that. I don't know that we feel like there's an epicenter of Wyden right now because, I mean, again, I remember when the Olympics work came out for Nike last year and I just texted the ECDs, Caleb and Blair, and I was like, that's so goddamn good. There's just like, there's always someone in the network making you more jealous and looking at the things that they're doing. And I think that's like the beauty of it is that we're always like pushing and re-inspiring each other. So, I think what's cool again is that like a thing that's interesting is in what you're saying is I remember there was this kid that did our Ad Magic program, which is like a program we had with HBCUs a couple of years ago. And we often talk about like the work that inspired us to get into advertising. We always point back to our own Wyden things. And I asked this guy, Courtney, I was like, well, what thing did you love that Wyden made? And he was like, oh, the Travis Scott meal. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. It's like, there's a new thing for someone that's like 22 to point to where like I'm always going to point back to like, a Nike freestyle ad.
A lot of people in our industry talk about culture, right? I feel like it's the new thing to talk about. It's like we're not really like talking about creative anymore. We're talking about culture and we're talking about social a lot of the time, right? And I see a lot of people using the word culture. It's like we did a cultural campaign about Mr. Clean retiring and then coming back with a new formula. And you're like, how do you do that in a way that lands and feels meaningful and doesn't feel like you're just like paying a celebrity for an endorsement?
We always try to base all of our work in like a truth. We look at the brand truths, but we also look at like the real world truths. And I think that like everything that kind of exists more in the real world that the brand can also own is where the actual magic happens. My brother is a historian. He's an archivist. When we were ECDs or whatever title on McDonald's, and I was talking to him for a while, I was like, oh, the thing I've realized is that like we're not competing with like the best ad to be creative. I was kind of competing with the Dream Team cups, like McDonald's as like a actual thing to work on. It's like the memory that we all had from our childhood of the Dream Team cups is like a piece of culture that McDonald's allows you to make. So the goal of trying to create something like that is still difficult, but like for people to remember these moments in culture.
How long was the Travis Scott, meal or whatever? How long did that take?
Well, it's funny. Each one of the famous orders started to have longer lead times. The first iteration of it was Super Bowl spot that was just the tray spot that ran in 2020. And it was all the celebrities' trays, which all came from the truth that like everybody has a McDonald's order. It's true for you, me, neighbors, celebrities, and the beauty of McDonald's that everybody can walk into McDonald's and get everybody else's meal. It like democratizes the whole thing. So the first iteration was the tray spot. And from trays came the idea that like, we had a shot of the tray in that Super Bowl spot that was Kim Kardashian's tray, and it had nuggets and it had honey, and the internet blew up online. They were like, you dip your nuggets in honey, and she just replied, of course I do, you should try it. And that was like not paid. She just did that, defended her own meal, which leads to Travis Scott and the concept again of like, if we all have our own orders and we can all have each other's, why don't we feature somebody's genuine order? And
Travis, so you didn't have to make new packaging for that.
So that was the thing. We didn't make new packaging. It was just the meal that he got,
the arrangement,
that had a little bit of an arrangement to it that, made the crew work a little bit harder. And that led to people framed the receipt. Like people went home and they just framed the Travis Scott receipt, their McDonald's order. And we were kind of like, wait, people are like collecting this thing and proud to be a part of this moment. So like as future meals came out, it was, well, why don't we design packaging that you could make? And by the time we got to BTS, people took the packaging and remixed it and made merch and did all these sorts of things with it. And then it was, well, why don't we try to make a new menu item and like bring in different ways that people could try new menu items from other countries and things like that. So each one became more iterative.
And are they down for that? Because they do occasionally test new menu items, different markets, right?
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the lead time thing. It's just like if you want to accomplish new packaging, that's going to take you longer. If you want to accomplish a new menu item, that's going to take you longer. And each one of those.
What is a new menu items? A couple of years or something, is it?
Yeah, it's about 16 months. I mean, it depends on where you have it. Like, the Grimace Shake was a massive one because, our thing was like, we want it to be, again, ignorant people. We're like, it should be purple because it's Grimace. So then it's like, well, we have the ube flavor in Japan and we have this flavor in Canada. So if we figure out which one we could actually bring, and that, again, is just the power of like collaborative creativity with our partners is that it affects more than just marketing. It starts to affect everybody. And what we really saw in all of those promotions with McDonald's was like a sense of pride. And a lot of the owner operators told us this, like when they saw the crew members wearing the t-shirt home, like wearing the Sweetie Meal t-shirt home, instead of taking off their uniforms when they left work, we were like, oh, this is affecting the business. It's affecting our customers. It's affecting the people that work there. That, and to your point, like that's real culture. It's not just like, was the ad funny? Did someone sing the jingle? It's so much bigger than just like the 30 seconds that are on TV, which is like incredible. And at its core is like the coolest version of what we can do.
And let's talk about the sideways. I don't know. What do you call that?
Oh, horizontal breakfast.
Horizontal breakfast. There you go. This to me feels like an idea that was sitting in a creative's bottom drawer for like 10 years. It's one of those things where it's like, it's such a good media insight, but I don't think anyone's really done that.
I think it's a testament to the partnership over so many years. We always say that like the power of a brand is like really knowing its voice. And like when you really know your voice, which is like your beliefs really well, it's easy for you to be a lot more agile. So being able to pull something off like that in 7 days from an idea that's in a deck to something that's airing the end of the Super Bowl and available the next day in stores is incredible. And it is just to your point, it feels like something that has been lying around in a deck forever. But really, I think that the thing about so much of what we try to accomplish is like when it's true, it's like the most sticky. So I think like the truth that you have a big night out and like you've been a little bit overserved is true for so many different moments of the year.
I think I've been overserved, guys.
You've been
this evening, it's not my fault. I've been overserved.
Yeah, we've been overserved.
That.
And the truth of that night, I mean, we've seen people every year. There's like a petition to have the day after Super Bowl off because people are like, it was a big night. So the truth of that feeling, to your point, of the morning after was something that the team really had maybe danced around before, but never really found the opportunity in the perfect storm of bringing it together. So being able to show the client that idea week of Super Bowl and to have the clients that like believe in this sort of thing and know it's something that they inherently can own culturally. The partnership.
And they immediately got it, or was there a
Yeah, they got it. They got it immediately and like flew out to the shoot. We had an all agency on the Thursday before the Super Bowl to show all the work. And we showed the comp of the out of home, and the team was shooting like the next day. So like it wasn't, they were already out on set with the clients on Friday to make the spot that was going to run on Sunday because, again, it just rang so true. And we love the clients that like know themselves well, believe in our ideas and believe in themselves enough to know what moments they can truly own. And like, it's something that we go back to over and over again for a lot of our clients from McDonald's to Nike to Michelob Ultra to, Delta. There's things that are inherently true for them that are massive and we can pull off really quick.
Everybody's cooking leading up to Super Bowl. So many teasers. You're like, okay, guys, you're putting the date up. Yeah, is this really popping? Like, people tweeting about this. I don't know. I can't wait to see what whoever has to say on 2-8 or whatever.
Yeah.
But it feels like the moment after is one of those things that a lot of people under explore, maybe from a conceptual standpoint. Like, what is our role in the moment after the thing?
Yeah. I mean, there's the beautiful story of the done in 7 days, but I think the beauty of it is also just like understanding the cultural moment as much as like, and there's value in that. I think there's value in leaving room for that, like being able to make something beforehand, which is going to be massive, but leaving room for the creativity that's going to exist and come live from these moments is incredibly important nowadays, because you really can't predict what's going to be the big thing, but the more you know your brand, the more you're able to like quickly respond to places where it's authentic for you to show up. And I think that to your point, it's like the planning is great, but the ability to just be agile and ready for that is kind of more impressive and like more exciting
and
too.
It feels
I think,
essential.
Yeah, and exciting for us. I think it's like, you know, the edge of the seat moments of trying to figure out how to pull these things off is what becomes so much more cool.
Yeah, it's less of this big long planning cycle, and it's more like, how can we be ready when an opportunity arises?
Yeah, and let the instincts kick in, like be driven by the instincts.
Recovery after a big night comes in many forms. McDonald's breakfast is one of them. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Wow. So you even got the VO over whatever. I guess he was able to do it pretty quick. Huh?
Yeah. And he's, you know, a tenant of that brand for the last 6 years now. So he needs some direction, but it's like you hear that and you just know it's him, you know, it's McDonald's, and he's like, oh, I know how to pull this thing off.
We've been really fortunate to interview all these people who are so much smarter than me, at least. And I feel, and I've found in a lot of creative leaders that many of them come from design backgrounds, and just that skill set of, you know, whether it's designing humans or designing a layout, we're definitely in this period of like indie revitalization. You know, like I think all the network agencies are kind of collapsing under their own business model, and brands are running just towards people who are agile and can like think and move quickly on things. When you and I met, you were, you know, Gray, BBDO, Saatchi, like in the heart of it. What do you think the big advantage you've seen from like being in-house at one of these big hundreds of thousand organizations to being at like a smaller, you know, place that, you know, has very defined values and how they, you know, solve for problems?
Yeah, the thing that probably happened maybe middle of my career that was maybe like a blessing in disguise was when like I split with my partner, because I'd always had a partnership where I was very much the art director and she was the writer. But I didn't know that like I could write until we split up. So then I learned that I could write a script because I'd been around it for forever. And I think that like when you're in the giant places, because there's so much more support around you, you could get used to that level of support. But really, I think what's massive both now for indies and for everyone is like the ability to kind of do both and like do all of it. Like be a little bit strategic, be a little bit of a writer, be a little bit of like a art director, have a sense of that. So many of the people at Wieden have like a little bit of backgrounds in both. Like they have a point of view on art direction if they are a writer. And we try to like train our teams to have that too. That way you're a little bit more self-sufficient and like there's no hurdle to making the creative, because you should just be able to like do it with minimal resources given to you. And I think that both adds to the agility of our ideas, but sort of the connectivity of it, because, you know, if you have a beautiful thing that's not written in any sort of truthful way, it's going to be incredibly boring. If you have something that's incredibly well written but like not shown in a way that's interesting, it's going to not resonate at all. So it's a huge part of what we do, and like a part of our thing Wieden being creatively led is not that like the creative directors are king. It's just we expect everybody here is rewarded for the work being good. So an account person has a point of view on the work, a strategist has a point of view on the work, a producer does. Like it's all of our jobs to be additive to it. And that comes in so many different ways of how it looks, what it says, where it's placed, like the crop circle idea from Portland for Victor Wembanyama was like brought back by a comms director. It was an idea that existed, but it was like, wait, Wembanyama is going to win Rookie of the Year. It's going to be this weekend. That's when the eclipse is going to pass over this part of Texas. That's why the idea is better if it runs now. And you're like, oh, dude, that's made that idea so much better. And like everybody having that sense of like, how can I be additive to the creativity is what makes the place so special.
Now that your job isn't just being creative and you're more tied to the business, like do you like that portion of it, or do you more gravitate to just like, let me make the team as good as it can be?
Well, it's funny because our business is creativity at Wieden. Like they're one and the same. I think that's a part of our independence. So I think we're at our worst if the business starts to overtake the creativity. And all of us, no matter what level, need to be additive to it. So we can never get too far away from the work or else we all lose our value, because the work's the only thing that's valuable here. So, it's a business, but every decision we make is based on what is best for the work itself, and never like something that's about what's going to make our wallets better. It's about what's going to make the work better.
It sounds really irritating as the CCO to have everybody being a creative, though, doesn't it? Be like, stay in your lane, dude. Trust me on this one.
Look, we are a place that values opinions. So there's a lot of.
I've heard that before.
There's
a lot of opinions.
Yeah, there's a lot of pros to that, but I think that's the thing. Is like we all have our opinions, but we also all put the work first over our own opinions. So yes, there's a lot of opinions that go into the work, but that's actually what makes it more interesting. Every day we argue all the time, so that's the beauty of it.
It's great. In terms of, I think you sort of mentioned something there, and I think it's kind of interesting because you're talking about agility and the timing and the speed for relevance to culture, right? But it sounds like your ability to do that has been enabled by this long-term thinking around servicing a brand like McDonald's. And, even to the fact that you were like, well, that's the voice of the brand. So like, of course we had him ready to go when we needed to do this horizontal breakfast campaign. Right. And it sounds like it's sort of the same thing around celebrities and creative, but it feels to me like in the industry right now, most people are chasing relevance to culture by moving quickly. But I don't think everybody's got their house quite as organized maybe as you guys do. So it feels really kind of disjointed when you go to market with such speed. Do you do that purposefully? It's sort of like be really well planned and think long term so that you can act short term.
Yeah. I think it's felt like it's just been an evolution of the industry. Like it used to be very much the assignment is 3 print ads and some radio, and you're like, cool, doesn't
that sound quite
That's great.
You've got 6 months.
Yeah, totally. You got 6 months to do that whole thing, and now it's so much more of one assignment could net you 300 deliverables, and I think that like,
and who's doing the comments, who's replying to the comments.
And I think that like, what we've shifted towards is like making these bigger platforms, and the platform is always based on the truth. And once you kind of understand and have defined the brand's voice, it's easier to pull more things out of it. And it's something that we have with all of our brands. Like each brand has a truth that it's built on, has a voice that it kind of owns. And from that, you're able to make more work more quickly, and it feels more familiar. So there are always like the sort of executional signatures. Yes, you hear Brian Cox. Yes, you hear the ba 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 ba. Yes, you hear Viola Davis. It's a Delta spot. Bryan Cranston reading for 4. There's all these things that are signifiers of it, but it really is the platforms and the truths that allow so much more work to come out of it. And I think that's necessary because, to your point, there is a sense of how can you be relevant constantly, but how can you be relevant and still get credit as the brand that you are. And I think that has to come down to like, do you actually know who you are? Do you know what your brand believes? Every move you make is something that feels like it's true. Like I always point back to Nike, like from, the early 90s, there's a spot with Charles Barkley saying, I'm not a role model. And then you fast forward and you have Colin Kaepernick saying, believe in something enough that you could risk everything. And I'm like, they're both true. Like Nike's always been about the voice of the athlete. And if the athlete changes, that's okay because it still is Nike's point of view, and that sort of more foundational platform point of view thing is what allows us all to make more pieces that are more genuinely owned by the brand now. And you kind of, you just have to do that to survive. Otherwise we're all just playing the like, look at me relevance game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And for that horizontal breakfast, did you work with I don't even call it a vertical director, but it feels like it's beautifully crafted piece for like mobile screens. It feels to me like something that wasn't made in 5 days. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it feels like a really nicely crafted piece of work. The director on that, did you choose somebody who was sort of social native, or was that like a traditional director? Or like, how did you think about production on that particular project?
It was less traditional versus social. It was more of, and this is kind of our
because it just feels like you're on a phone. Do you know what I mean? It feels like I'm on the phone and then I like lie down.
Yeah.
And Brian Cox is like whispering in my ears. It's very nice. I'm like, oh, I want to eat McDonald's.
Yeah. So I think that like it goes back to our sort of main pillar of like having a point of view. And I think if you go like the point of view for horizontal breakfast is the feeling of lying down and waking up early. So to your earlier question, Jake,
I've been overserved again.
It's like,
damn them.
Everything we do services that same point of view. So it's like the camera should feel as unsettled as you do in the morning. And like Brian Cox's voice should feel like it's the voice you would have at that point in the day. Like everything should start to reserve the concept that like I feel like I am on my side and the world's a bit upside down. So that's like the when we're really like on all cylinders, every decision we make when it comes to executing something goes back to that same truth and point of view. And I think that's like, to your point, Jake, it's like that is what serves you as an art director or a copywriter or a comms planner, because like, why would that ad run before the Super Bowl? That ad has to come after the Super Bowl. And those billboards have to pop up the morning after the Super Bowl. Like everything needs to service the idea more and more and more. So, it wasn't necessarily like the camera move had to serve that, like the directors had to serve that, and everybody can get on board with that idea is what makes it more exciting because everybody's just adding to it.
I feel like another conception people probably have about brands is like the brands that come to Wieden are like more willing to accept that you guys are sort of masters of this universe, and that if they do it the Wieden way, they're going to get the business transformation that they want. You've worked at a lot of different places. Now that you're the first port of call for some brands, do you think they're ready for this, or do you think it's the same amount of work as anywhere you guys are just better at it?
I don't know. I think we are, we're not for everybody. Like, I think that's just like inherently true because we are like a mess. Dan always said we're a cosmic joke. Like we were started as this agency that didn't like advertising, but inherently like the first client that you tie that to is Nike, and like the sort of commitment between Wieden and Nike, they're inherently like tied at the hip. So there is a bit of like, we want to transform. There's a bit of, when we say we want to work on everything down to the whole music, a lot of our ideas are going to start to pop up creatively in places that like we probably shouldn't be because we don't have the degrees to match up with the sorts of things we want to be creative on. I don't know how a plane flies, but I bring an idea about how you should redesign a plane, or like maybe Delta should change their bathroom this way. Maybe Michelob Ultra should make a drink that tastes like this. And we're all ignorant in that sense, but we have clients that appreciate that level of creativity and enthusiasm and perspective even if they know it's not necessarily always right for every piece of it. And like, I think the more clients are willing to partner with us as like actual business partners creatively versus just like a vendor that services you, you know, a couple of spots that are going to run and then nothing comes after that, like the more useful I think working with Wieden+Kennedy is. So people come to us when they do want to like make a cultural difference, make a business difference, make a creative difference. And I think that's kind of on us. And like when we get the most excited is the ability to be able to like push that sort of stuff. You know, I think a lot of people have a conception that like we're asked and we're like, we won't do that. Like we're not above any part of the process. And I think it's just very much like we're going to always be honest with you about like a real world perspective on the situation, you know. And I think that's going to be a tough conversation, but I think it's valuable because it's kind of what we do at our best is just get to the truth and be honest about these sorts of things.
Obviously, we hear a lot about AI. Can the brands just go and plug their bank into Meta or whatever, or do you think there's a role for humans ahead?
Gotta hope there's a role. No, there's a role for us ahead. I think that it's funny. It's such a. I was thinking about even my first job at Fallon when I got there. There was a bit of like, oh man, advertising's like I think like every 10 or so years.
Of Facebook or whatever? Or
I think it was like a little bit of Facebook social, you know, Instagram, coming from a place that did BMW films to like, you know, short form content starting to be a thing. It was a bit of like, I don't think we're going to survive this, the .com boom. You're like, oh no, we're again. So like, I think there's always a bit of but I think that's the cool part because we are a creative industry and like without challenge, we're kind of pointless, you know? So like the AI of it all is an incredible opportunity because it is just like, it's a new tool that allows us to figure out new ways to be creative. But I think there's always going to be a limit on what it can actually do and what it can actually like reach, because there's always value in, I was saying earlier, like the human truth thing is something that's going to be meaningful regardless of the tool. And I think that's something that we're always going to bring to the table as creatives. And I think we're all interestingly like figuring out how to evolve with this thing. You know, some people are going for efficiencies in production. Some people are going like integration in the creative process. I think all of it is super useful for us to kind of investigate how we can like use this sort of thing and like and make it like meaningful for the future. You know, I think like my nephew and nieces live in a world where they're 13 and 10. I'm like, they just live in a world where AI is a thing. So if we rejected it completely, like then we're going the way of coal miners.
You don't ask Uncle Marcus, you ask ChatGPT, maybe Google.
But there's value in our evolution. Like I think that's the thing. Is like, you know, if we think we have it figured out, we're essentially dead. Like that's something Dan Wieden always said. Like, you know, once we think we know it all, we're screwed. So the fact that there's something making us all question all over again is like when you feel the most alive and interested.
I've known Marcus for a long time, and like he's the nicest human being, but also just you see I just still always marvel in all these talks we have with people, you know, it's like you see why someone's successful. And Marcus has always been really great at like bringing you along in the conversation and just dropping like knowledge bombs where you just go, oh, that was a good take. That's why I like talking to this guy.
Thank you, man. Honored. It's an incredible friendship for all these years, and I appreciate even the invitation for this thing. Like, you know, I'm always like, I'm going to say a bunch of stupid shit. And I'm like,
that's why we have edit.
It's mostly to make my questions mildly concise. Still working on that.
So you talked about your niece and nephew a little bit. What's your advice for all the young Marcuses, the Marcus wannabes out there who want to be, you know, solving problems with creativity for the big brands?
I think it's probably two things. I think it's like there is incredible value in this. I don't know if this is just a Wieden+Kennedy thing, but we value so much like an individual's unique voice and perspective. So like always honing in on your take on the world And like, I think that take on the world is what's going to inform the take you bring to every piece of creativity you have. Is massive. And like, you know, even if I think about the Super Bowl and like the idea of, I used to be very like afraid of it because you're looking at a stage where everybody's watching and everybody's judging. It's a 30-second thing. It's the biggest deal in advertising. And then the more
What's
of them,
Tim gonna say?
what's the rating going to be? And it was like weirdly incredibly freeing the more spots I did, because, you know, you make your first spot, you have a Super Bowl party, you invite your friends over. They're talking during the first 5 seconds of your commercial.
You're like,
everybody shut up. I spent like 6 months on this thing. Then it ends, and then the next commercial pops up, and you're like, oh man, that was like a lot of work for this thing. So like, there's a bit of, it's never that serious. You like, it's a very fun industry, and it's not that big of a deal. But I think the other side of that is like, again, looking at this Super Bowl, you know, Bad Bunny at the halftime show is like a person that legit was like, I'm bringing my voice to this stage as authentically as possible, and it ends up being like the #1 streamed and watched Super Bowl halftime show of all time, because you're like, if you legit bring yourself to this creativity, it's going to make a huge difference, have a massive impact. So like, it's a big thing that I think everybody young should know, and I think that's kind of the future, is that like, it doesn't exist without your voice. So like, bring your weird shit to it. You know what I mean? Don't be afraid of your weird shit. Let's add it to the
I feel
party.
like that's so hard for a junior though, because to me, at least, school is an exercise in sort of like narrowing. You know what I mean? Sort of bringing everybody towards a common view or something.
Yeah. I think there's a bit of like strong personality and soft ego to it all. You know what I mean? Like, you have to have an opinion, but you can never walk in like, you know what I mean? Like, there is a bit of like, learn it while you're doing
Strong
it.
personality, soft ego.
Yeah.
I've never heard that. That's good.
Oh, thank you.
Is that one of yours?
Yeah, I think I do. I think so. Unless I heard it somewhere.
It's your new book. My new book on Kindle.
It's in the movie now.
Yeah, so like, you have to learn it, but you shouldn't just repeat it. You know what I mean? Like, we just rewatched Everything Everywhere All at Once last night, and I go, God, what a movie that was. And like, hadn't watched it in forever. And my wife was like, this won awards. I go, oh yeah, it was nominated for 11 awards and won 7 Academy Awards. Why? Because no one saw something like this before. And like, that's the key, is learn the thing, but still don't lose yourself while you're making the thing. Otherwise, it's just going to be like, you know, no offense, there's a brand new Superman this year. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I've seen 1 million Superman movies.
You should, if you've never watched it, I would watch the Daniels like Vimeo
Daniel
talk. No. The directors, the Daniels who did everything, they were big music video directors before they broke in, and like Vimeo Staff Picks was like a very influential part of their career, and Vimeo used to have, or maybe still has, a conference, and they just kind of broke down their entire creative process, and where they effectively just stole, like, they'll show you where they stole all these shots that you're like, that is the most inventive thing in the world. And it's like, we ripped it directly off from this thing, but it's their ability to like synthesize it in a new way and give it their own voice. But it's a really fascinating like journey through the creative process that like everyone should watch, just because, you know, like, you think about what they do is so ephemeral and original and out there, and in reality, like, it's almost very scientific.
Yeah, it's what you learn and then your take on it. You know what I mean? It's like, I was listening to an interview with Ryan Coogler, and he was talking about when he saw Jurassic Park as a kid, and the scene that fucked him up was the side view mirror scene where it says in the mirror, objects in the mirror appear closer than they are. And he said he was frightened when he got in his car later as a kid because he was like, that means a T-Rex could come now. But but in reality, you're like, oh, dude, that's such an interesting thing because you have someone
typeface.
Yeah, someone saw a thing in the real world, put it in Jurassic Park. A not known young filmmaker sees that movie, now affected by the fact that like movies have real life things in them. And now all his movies have this weird balance of like the real world and like his whole art form is inspired by that thing. So to your point, it's like they all feel original, but they're also just like inspired learners with their own perspectives. And like that's massive.
How do you think about giving creatives the space to do unique, interesting, original work?
Yeah, I think that at one point I just reflected on my career and I realized that for a while, I think that I would say I made my ad for like 3 years of my career. I went from like learning how to make other people's ads to making my own ads because I had some confidence to like making other people's ads. And I was like it was juniors and like mid-levels and senior creatives. And it was a bit of like, to your point, it was not that I felt like I could work with ego-driven CDs, but there's a bit of like, well, I don't really want to make the thing that I made already. So it has to be room for you guys to make what you want to make. Now that always still has to have like a standard that they may not know exists yet. That may have like a bit of like executional components they may not know exist or how to pull it off. But it's more exciting to me when you are letting young people make things that are interesting that you would never have made before. And that's the kind of it's a beautiful way to like, going back to the Wieden legacy thing, like it should always be a new perspective added to it. And like, I would love for our work to be that as well. And like my reel to be that as well. Like it shouldn't just be my same take over and over and over again. It has to be room for new people to add their voices to it because that's what becomes the most interesting and the most like future proof, you know, like why would I keep making the same ad I made in 2009 now? It'll be a nightmare.
Quite literally.
Was the C a big moment for you? The C-suite title, obviously that's sort of the top. I assume you guys just go to board meetings and sit on jets and stuff. But what was surprising to you about like that role and getting there?
Yes and no. I think I'm just like an oblivious person to that sort of stuff. Like, I think the thing that was weird was when people started to like rename our meeting invites based on our titles, and I was like, "Don't, dude." I'm like still.
Wait, how
well, it went from like CD review to like, and I was like, it's still Marcus and my partner Brandon reviewing the work. Like our titles haven't changed. This is people.
And you guys have an extra C as well, which is pretty silly.
So I think
the CCCC.
I think that's like it didn't necessarily. I think it's a trap if people let it change them. I think that like you can look at the industry as like a ladder and like a game to gamify and climb, but you know,
easy to say at the top. Don't worry about the ladder, guys.
Yeah, but I do think
everybody jump off.
I think if you lose sight of what got you there, like, you know, I'm looking down at my dock right now, like my Photoshop's still open. You know what I mean? I'm like, there's not going to be a world where I just don't try to comp a thing or write a script or do whatever, because like it's really about what's most additive to the work. The beauty of it is like, you know, there's times where you could sit back because there's people that are going to do all those details and they're way better at a lot of those details than you are. So, you know, it didn't feel like it was it's an honor, obviously, because it's like one of the greatest agencies of all time, and it's something that I don't take lightly. But it didn't necessarily change my perspective on like my role to the place. You know, is that
humble
weird?
to.
Does it sound like
humble to the end?
It's just because we're recording. So they say that this goes back to the obvious. Don't you know who the I am?
But I would look, if there is a private jet, as you told me, no one's told me where it is yet. So
PJ,
like I would love to. I'd love to know where it's being hidden.
Jake, are you good, or should we close it out?
Thank you, Marcus.
No, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Marques, thanks for coming on Second Wind. It's been a real
Appreciate it.
pleasure.
Talk to you guys soon. Bye.